First and foremost, I want to give our praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushua, Bashem Kapidash. Second, I want to give a double honor to Apostle Jimmy, that rule of well, and a peace, blessing, and salutation to the hopeful elect, you so-called Negro, Latino, Hispanics, Native American, West Indians, as makes up the 12 tribes of Israel today. And those will be edified. And let me fatigue, so-called white fatigue. Bear with me. Anyway, Jim. Let me see what I'm going to start off with. Come on, this hat. First of all, hold on. Let me start off with this. Yeah, so as we been hearing, 2025 Grand Blanc Township Church attack on the morning of September 28, 2025. A mass shooting and arson attack occurred at a meeting house of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan, United States. Michigan, I believe, is a town north of Detroit. So it's at least 4 killed and 8 others wounded after shooting and fire at Michigan church. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was another one as well. Well, I would have to look you up. Lucky. But you've been having a lot of mass shootings. And this whole facade, this whole thing about black fatigue, so-called blacks being criminal, etc. I get it. But what do you have to say now? And one thing for certain, so-called blacks, Latinos, Hispanics, we only kind of destroy our own vicinity. But overall, regardless of, a lot of atrocities and things that were deliberately set up for us to fail, and become this, what's the word? Degenerates. Majority of our people prevail. And instead of crashing out as Edomites do as a whole, as a large scale, Jake just, do the certain things that they cope with, and they try to, proceed. But these Edomites on the other end, the so-called white hero, the so-called good guy, the whom everybody desires, they just starting to crash out. They take those, those artillery, his sword, which he's been blessed with, and he starts to let them things fly. So one thing for certain, where was Jesus? Where was white Jesus? Where was he? You Christians and etc. Vocab. Are you going to speak on this? Are you going to expound, touch on this, and you're going to go up there and give your 2 cents? Because when you look at the history of the so-called Christians, they have a very bloody history. But I'm not going to go too far. I'm just going to get a couple of scriptures, and I'm going to wrap it up. Let me see something. For certain, the scripture talks about, the Lord doesn't dwell in a temple made with hands. The last stronghold of a temple was 70 AD, prior to Vespasian Titus, if I'm not mistaken, the order of Nero to destroy our temple. And even then, there was a lot of corruption and wickedness amongst the temple. And ultimately, the destruction the Yahweh Shem had that temple destroyed. And, after, they prophesied about how another temple was going to be built, but it was going to be spiritual. That's going to consist of all the 12 tribes. All the tribes coming together and waking up in the name of Yahweh Shah, not a physical temple, as those rat bastards in the the land right now is somewhat talking about going off, going off his house, going off. But they're not the people, so what's expected? 1 Corinthians 6:9. So 1 Corinthians 6:9, know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of Yahweh Shah? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, or revilers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of Yahweh Shah. So ultimately, we have these type of people, but their sanctuary is the church. You don't have to believe it, but in all actuality, the church called for these people to come to their body of church to pretty much get money out of them and play certain mind games on them and trick them into and coerce them into pretty much giving up the money, etc. They use them for different purposes, and then after they use them, for their certain purpose, they pretty much just let them will dwindle away. Because there's no truth in those churches, which you see that are coming up. Because ultimately, you know, look what's happening. Ultimately, it tells you how the Lord's going to start throwing down idols and pretty much start judging these harlot houses, which come in the name of who the word and they call Jesus Christ. But ultimately, it's this. It goes back to the system, the uplifting of the system. Let me see something real quick. So, all right, Wisdom of Solomon 15:1. This is in the GNT. But you are power, are kind and true and patient. You rule the universe with mercy, because ultimately Yahweh is the one that controls all in Yahweh Shah. If we, because again, you understand the story of Yahweh Shah, you understand, pretty much all things was given, power was given unto him. So, and even if we sin, we know your power and are still yours. But because we know that we belong to you, we will not sin. So ultimately, one thing for truth's sakes, we know that the Lord is not dealing in these churches, in these places made with built with hands. And when you go into more into these Wisdom of Solomon 14, I believe 13 and 12, talks about gods, etc., and places built by men's hands. And ultimately, this system, it goes back to the God of this world, Edomite supremacy, and these philosophies and these doctrines, and they store those doctrines inside those churches which were built by men's hands. That's pretty much overall the message is to worship pretty much this system, which is how you say formed as a state or a title of a worshiping of who the world and they call Jesus Christ in the name of Christianity or different denominations. So it says, knowing you is perfect righteousness. So again, we don't fall for these devices. We don't fall for Esau's wiles or his trickery. We for certainly don't go in these churches because we know the Lord is not there. Recognizing your power is where immortality begins. So, hey, there you go. So where was the Lord? They were shouting, screaming. I'm pretty sure, But then that Edomite gunman came in and did what? And he burnt it. Not only did he shoot it up, he burnt it. Oh, we have not been misled by any evil product of human skill, by any useless object painted by some artist. And then, again, those buildings which are erected by men's hands, they're built in a certain fashion to pretty much catch the eye and really have people thinking that the Lord is really inside that place. But there isn't. He isn't, Salaki. Or by any idol smeared with different colors. The sight of such things arouses the passions of foolish people. There you go. So those buildings, etc., those doctrines, they arouse people because ultimately, you understand, the elites, Amalek, they got everybody underneath a caste. And everybody actually believes, this is of liberty. You can just worship and serve anything. But ultimately, these Edomites and these other nations, they can do so. But overall, this truth is geared for our people, the Israelites, which have been scattered amongst these heathens, and ultimately have taken a like to be like them, and so a lot of our people are turned out. And like for instance, now instead of our people like pretty much is who gives a damn, and shake it, basically rubbing it off the shoulders and not really caring, while our people are really sucked into the madness. They feel sorry for these Edomites. They feel sorry for, they again, they're still trying to justify and make themselves look good. But at the end of the day, that's how these Edomites are. They're crash out artists. They love the sword. The sight of such thing, and those, there are the bloody men. They're very bloody. That's all Esau knows. He has a long history of in pillaging, rape, robbing, and murdering. And that's ultimately, the Lord said, he's going to have the Egyptians going against the Egyptians. You're going to see a lot of these Edomites start pretty much getting sick of the society, and they're going to crash out. The sight of such things arouses the passion of the foolish people, makes them desire a dead, lifeless image. Anyone who makes such a thing or desires it or worships it is in love with something evil and get what he deserves when he places his hopes in it. So, these people hopes were in a dead idol, something that's not real. And they fully believe that no wrong or evil thing could happen to them, and bam, that Edomite came in with the gun, and then I guess with some some substance that can burn the church down as well. So that was one of those pow right in the kisser moments. I got one more. Let me see. So this is Wisdom of Solomon. No, Salak, this is Letter of Jeremiah. Bear with me real quick. Hold on real quick. I'm going to jump around. So the Letter of Jeremiah 66, and I probably jump up. So it said, these powers, these gods have no power over kings. They cannot, let me see something. They cannot pronounce curses on them or grant them blessings. They cannot produce for the nations any sound in the sky. They cannot shine like the sun or the moon. Even wild animals are better off than these idols. Animals can at least run from danger to protect themselves. So it is absolutely clear that they are no gods. Do not worship them. And, ultimately, these people go into these sanctuaries or these churches or these buildings, so-called churches, the real churches, a gathering of Israelites in the name of Yahweh Shem Rashah, but ultimately, the aspect and the thought process of a church is these buildings which were created by men's hands, and you're going there, you're ultimately worshiping this system, this Edomite supremacy, this system, Babylon the Great. Let me see. Yeah, so ultimately, Jesus Christ and what was the saint, whatever a denomination it was. I'm gonna read this. So, letter of Jeremiah 53. These gods can never make anyone a king or bring rain. They cannot make decisions about their own affairs or give justice to someone who has been wronged. If you look on outside looking in, you'll be like, oh man, this was bad. This was sad. Oh man, we need to do this and do that and stop the high power rifles, etc. But you know, where was Jesus Christ? Where was whomever they believe in? Where was he? They can absolutely do nothing. They are as useless as crows flying around in the air. When a temple catches on fire, oh man, the priests run away to save themselves. See that? And did not that Edomite set that temple, that church on fire? So, where was Jesus to put it out, or whomever they worship? Why didn't it put it out? So it said, when a temple catches on fire, the priests run away to save themselves, while the gods made of wood and covered with silver and gold are left to burn like wooden beams. They can't fight kings or go to war against enemies. How can anyone believe that they are gods? So you get the point. These places that these people are going to worship is not protecting you. I mean, look at the whole Christianity as a whole. So-called black people, Hispanics, Latinos, they've been into these harlot houses for decades and centuries, man. And what's the outcome? Look at the state of our people. Because what? You're worshiping the wrong thing. Ultimately, when you go into those churches, you're worshiping the Edomite supremacy. You're worshiping this system. Who's in power? Amalek, Esau, the elites. And that's who formed all these ideologies and these religions, man. Ultimately, majority of these religions come from the Catholic Church, So that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Those who's edified. Hey, Shalom.